Good Friday afternoon, everybody. Meteorologist Greg Majewski back with you here in the North Georgia Majewski Studios with your Talking Live weekend forecast update here on your January the 23rd, 2026. And of course, the big news weather story-wise is going to continue to be that winter storm. We're expecting it to hit pretty severely across East Tennessee and North Georgia. The big culprit is going to be ice, as we have numerous ice storm warnings now up for the area. So this is your last chance to make your preparations, as we could be looking at some decent power outages across the area as we go into Sunday. Now, before we get rolling here on this full report, if you're new here to the Talking Live broadcast channel Facebook page, please give us a follow. And if you happen to be watching over on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell so you're alerted on future weather updates just like these. All right, let's go ahead and start off with a live look there in Chattanooga, as we got some clouds out there. Temperature's not overly bad. We do have a Arctic cold front knocking on our front door that's going to cool things down here just a little bit here this afternoon. Looking out there in Dahlonega, looking at cloudy skies there as well. Temperature's not that bad across North Georgia as well, but things will be getting colder, especially as we go into next week. Now, here are the latest watches and warnings that are up all of East Tennessee and all of North Georgia, pretty much here in looking at the freezing rain advisory, ice storm warning here, I should say, for this area. So we're expecting accumulations of ice anywhere from about a quarter inch. Some places in the Northeast Georgia mountains may be approaching an inch as far as the coating, and that'll do tremendous amount of damage to the power infrastructure. So please make sure you plan accordingly, all right? Now, as we look at our local radar, we're quiet here for the moment. Things will begin to change as we go into the late afternoon tomorrow and going into tomorrow night, when things will get very dicey out there, to say the least. All right, satellite imagery showing us all the clouds that are going to be staying with us. We're not going to see much in the way of sunshine, probably not until Monday, but it's going to be bitterly cold, folks, for next week. Very cold for the entire week, so get ready for that. Regional radar showing us again, we got this cold front here knocking on our front door. This one is noticeably colder behind it. If you take a look, you notice it's 50 degrees up here to the northeast of Chattanooga, but 34 behind the front there in Nashville. Look, here's a 25 there and 22 back here in southern Missouri. So again, some very cold air moving into the area. Now, let's go ahead and start off with looking at the regional model data here. We're going to first take a look at the European model, take you through the entire event here, as we're starting off on 7 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. So watch as this comes onto the area. May start initially as a little snow. That's what the European is showing here, but it quickly goes over to freezing rain here across the entire region. And it looks like we get wedged in here across Northeast Georgia with some icing, and that will continue here until we watch this front come on by. We're watching an area of low pressure, and the European has been favoring this northern jog of this area of low pressure. So it looks like we'll see a brief warm up there on Sunday. But once this goes on by, it's going to go by quickly, and the temperature is going to drop like a rock. So I expect black ice to be a major problem for a lot of places on Monday morning. And it looks like we stay just bitterly cold for Monday as well as into Tuesday, and it stays that way really all week. We do have another shot of some cold air coming down here toward Wednesday and Thursday. Here comes the next shot right there, maybe bringing a little bit of snows across the Smokies there going to Thursday, and it looks like it stays cold right into next Friday, into next week. All right, now let's go take a look at the freezing rain accumulations. We're showing 3/4 of an inch here across a lot of North Georgia, in and around the Chattanooga area, only about a 1/4 inch or so in around Chattanooga, and you see a little higher there toward the central portions there, almost 3/4 of an inch, and an inch back over here toward the areas of the Carolinas. So a lot of ice with this, to say the least. The snow totals, again, staying to the north on the European model. You kind of see that there. Staying up there, but again, might start with a little bit of a light snow falling here as we go into the initial part of the precipitation arriving as we go into your Saturday afternoon. Now, let's go ahead and compare this to the American GFS model here. We're going to look at this one again, starting at the same time at 7 o'clock. It's got a little more sleet in here, and that's kind of, I wouldn't be surprised to see sleet initially, especially when you start the initially precipitation of the event, because you got some dry air typically in the mid-levels. It would not shock me to see a little sleet initially, but then it goes over to freezing rain here for just about everybody, and it stays there right through Saturday night, and then it kind of lingers a bit before it goes into the green. Now, the low pressure here on the GFS, slightly further south, just a little bit, but again, those tens of miles can make a big difference on the temperature profile depending on where you're located. All right, this moves on through, clears on out, and again, the bottom just drops out going into Monday. So again, icing a problem there, and this will stay this way all week. Now, I'm going to show you something here on the GFS model. It was not there on the European model. I'm only going to show this because I'm advising you that if you see this out on social media, please ignore it, because I do not favor this model. Okay, you see this big snowstorm is trying to generate here out in the Gulf. going into the following Saturday, okay? I do not buy that solution. The European buries that energy in the Gulf, and we do not have a snowstorm. Until I see it on the European, do not pay attention to this model. Just want to put that out there for anybody out there in the social media world. All right, so here we go. We got icing here showing about, the GFS is heavier, showing about half inch there around Chattanooga. Heavier amounts here, getting upwards of an inch or so, and almost 2 inches there near Athens. I don't know if we're going to get quite that much. But again, severe icing up here across North Georgia. I think 1 inch is a possibility there, especially into the mountain locations. As far as the snowfall totals here for this period, again, a little bit further south with the two models. Again, this has been true here pretty much for the duration. We've been tracking this all week with the European bringing the snow further north and the GFS slightly south. So like I said, those folks in Tennessee trying to forecast this thing is going to be a bit of a nightmare, to say the least. But I do think the snow stays away from Chattanooga and most of East Tennessee for right now. Everything looks like just plain old ice. Now, as far as the temperatures are concerned, we're looking at some bitterly cold air for this week. Let me back this up again. As we go into your Saturday morning, again, we got temperatures here in the 20s. So very, very cold here across East Tennessee there. And it pretty much stays there. We get above freezing here briefly, or right near it, into the 30s here in the afternoon. Then we go right back down. Looks like we're creeping above freezing there across Chattanooga at 34 at 1 o'clock, but all of North Georgia is in the 20s at that point. So again, we got a warm surge. You kind of see that here on this model as this is coming up north into Alabama here, because you got the wedge on one side and the cold front on the other. And this moves on through. So we may actually go into the 40s, 43 potentially in the afternoon there on your Sunday, and then the bottom drops out as the very cold air rushes in. So by the time we get to your time on Monday morning, you're looking at 18 in Chattanooga, 17 over there into Blairsville, for example, into the teens across East Tennessee. And then the high temperatures on Monday are really going to struggle here, pretty much staying below freezing all day. And then going into Tuesday morning, it gets very, very cold here. Again, especially if we're looking at icing and everything down around here, showing single digits and lower teens here across the area, and the GFS is even colder with that as well. Now let's go look at here at the higher resolution model here. Kind of looking at this real quick here. No, actually, I want to do the GFS. Let's do the GFS temperature comparison here. Let me back this up. Again, kind of watch the timestamp there as we're looking at temperatures in the 20s here on Saturday morning. The GFS does not warm us up as much as the European. The reason for that is because the low is tracking further south. It does warm us up to about 38 degrees in the afternoon instead of 43, so because it's a little bit further south. But then the bottom drops out here again, going in towards your Monday morning. You're showing temperatures here down into the teens for all of East Tennessee and most of North Georgia. And then going into your Monday afternoon, we pretty much stay below freezing all day. And then Tuesday morning, it really gets cold here on the GFS model here as it's bringing down temperatures. Look at all this. This is all below zero temperatures, folks. All that where that snowpack and icing is, it's got temperatures here below zero, single digits there into Chattanooga and a lot of North Georgia. We are going single digits for lows here on your Tuesday. All right, let's look at the forecast map here as we go through the next week. Watch that little timestamp there on top as we go through the days of the week here. And we're watching the system arrive out of the west here. Again, look how massive the storm is. It is huge. Nearly half the nation is going to be impacted by this system. It's one that's going to be talked about for a long time, for as many people are going to be impacted by this thing. As this moisture kind of rides over that Arctic air cannot hold that type of moisture, so it's dumping it. And all that orange you see in there is that wintry mix in freezing rain and sleet for solution. The blue is the snow. But by Sunday, you see Sunday's position there. By Monday, we're clearing out. It's going to be a bit breezy on Monday, too. Not only is it going to be cold, we're going to have wind chills to have to deal with throughout the day on Monday and Tuesday with that Arctic high pressure right on top of us and icing out there and everything else that's going on. It's going to be bitterly cold on Tuesday. And then we got another shock coming down here. Here's Wednesday's map. Here's Thursday. See that high up there to the high plains? That's coming in on Friday and looking at some very, very icy conditions there. Now, you notice here the Weather Service is painting this stuff back here to the west. What the European is doing with this is burying it into the Gulf, while the GFS is bringing a low along the Gulf and throwing that moisture up this way. I stay with the European solution on this until I see otherwise, all right? So anyway, let's look at your forecast here for tomorrow. Again, looking at a high about 39. That'll probably be late, as we might see a little wintry mix there as we go on to Saturday. Again, going down to the morning low around 29 degrees. You might see a little mix there in the morning. And then looking at your overnight lows here, generally cloudy overnight, most everybody in the 20s, a few 30s over toward portions of northern Georgia. And then your daytime highs, Again, it's going into 30s and 40s here as that winter remix. Again, the folks over in North Georgia, you got to wait for that wedge to move in, which will be late Saturday going into Saturday night, and that's when the icing will start there. Regionally looking like this, again, looking at temperatures, look at that. Memphis 21, Nashville 28, bitterly cold with that Arctic air up there. 35 in Asheville, 52 in Columbus, 66 in Destin, and 67 in New Orleans. Here goes your next 7 days, as again, we're going to punch it up to about 45 on Sunday, depending on the exact track of that low. As I just showed you, our European was going 43, and the GFS was going like 37. So we're going on the warm side of guidance on that. And then we're going to see the bottom drop out, 29 to 17 there in Chattanooga on Monday, going down to 7 on Tuesday. Again, very cold Arctic air there. Might see some below zero temperatures, especially in the mountains. And then we stay cold all week, folks. We're bringing it back down to 27-14 as we go toward Friday. So a bitterly cold week. This is definitely one of those weeks where you want to check on the elderly, make sure they're being taken care of, that they're not being too stingy with their heating conditions, or if you want to bring mom and dad over, bring them over and keep them warm, as it's going to be very cold in the aftermath of this winter storm. And we got to hopefully not get, knock on wood, widespread power outages that could be a significant problem across East Tennessee and North Georgia as those ice warnings are up. Now, we are planning to do another update tomorrow. Typically, this is we only do it on Friday, but we will be doing another update for you guys for your Saturday afternoon, so you can keep track on this, and we'll see how things work out as we go through the weekend. Again, that's your all's update for today. Y'all be good, stay safe, and by the way, almost forgot, make sure you give us a follow here on Facebook, and please hit that subscribe button there on the YouTube side of things. All right, you guys take it easy. Have a great night. Bye-bye.